All right, welcome to episode 6. I am Rick Madsen, also known on most social media as some form of Rick Mad. This is my Instagram account. You can find me on Twitter, just Rick Mad. So you pretty much Google just about Rick Mad, and just about anything that comes up is some version of me and some social media platform or whatnot. It's a nice identifier. That's what I go with. So here we go. In this episode, I'm going to cover the book Pawns in the Game. I've got pulled up on the screen here. Size this. And just a quick introduction. Author is William Guy Carr. It was published in 1958. And Carr, it says here, early age, was thoroughly indoctrinated into the Bolshevik ideology by revolutionary missionaries. Traveled in the same ship with him out of the Orient in 1907. He was a naval officer, pretty distinguished career. And there's one part of this book that I want to focus on. It's just a few pages. And it's really the plan. I refer to it as sort of the current iteration of the plan for world domination. So you can go back in history, and whatever dominant culture at the time, they were trying to rule the world, whether it's the Romans, whoever, the Babylonians, you go back as far as you want. And so we're currently under a system that is in control, being controlled by a group of powerful elite. My previous episodes, I discussed silent weapons for quiet wars, went into a little bit of detail of the technology and the methodology that they use in their current systems of control over what is now the current version of sort of this group's plan to pretty much dominate the entire planet. So, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job of it. So anyway, this, let me scroll down to it here. So this is basically documenting a meeting that was supposedly had back in 1773. Come on. Why is this being sticky? Let's go. All right. So 1773, the first, when the House of Roth, the Rothschild, the Red Shield, when they first sort of hit the map and became a prominent power. Meyer Rothschild, son of, I forget the name at the moment, but their last name was Bauer, B-A-E-R-U-E-R, something like that. And that's when they changed it to Rothschild. Meyer Rothschild became successful in banking. You probably all know the story, how he made his riches. But basically, this is a summary of the meeting that he had with, at the time, the sort of ruling elite. And we'll just read through a few pages here and then add my comments. Should be able to get through the whole thing in one episode here. So he's 30 years of age. He invited 12 other wealthy and influential men to meet him in Frankfurt. The purpose was to convince them that if they agreed to pool their resources, they could then finance and control the world revolutionary movement and use it as their manual of action to an ultimate control of the wealth, natural resources, and manpower of the entire world. So different usage, terminology, New World Order, World Order. This world revolutionary movement is that version of what we're dealing with today, at least if you believe all of this. And again, just a quick point on that. I'm not presenting this as though this is, the absolute positive empirical truth. I've read a lot of books, a lot of white papers, done tons of research, and unless you were there with them in the room, you don't know. Is this propaganda? It could be, but does it make sense? Are there things in here that sort of mesh with what we see happening today? And are the outlines that they put forth in these books and what I presented here so far, does it make sense to what's happening today? And in a lot of ways, what I read, it does. All this stuff comes back from somewhere. We're not just random people bouncing around on a spinning ball in space waking up one day and deciding, oh, let's start a war. Oh, let's create this. Let's do that. There's a lot of behind the scenes control going on. And I've got a curious mind and I want to know who it is. And that's what's led me to do a lot of this research. So here's one piece of that research. Take it however you want. Read it yourself. Decide for yourself. I'm just saying here it is. There's some plausibility to it all. It might be worth considering. All right, so let's move on. So Rothschild revealed how the English Revolution had organized. He pointed out the mistakes and errors that had been made. The revolutionary period had been too long. The elimination of reactionaries had not been accomplished with sufficient speed and ruthlessness. The planned reign of terror by which the subjugation of the masses was to be accomplished speedily had not been put into effective operation. Even after all these mistakes had been made, the initial purpose of the revolution had been achieved. The bankers who instigated the revolution had established control of the national economy and consolidated the national debt. And so we're picking up after the revolution, and we're in 1773. What stood out to me in this is sort of they're discussing tactics, and he's saying the revolutionary period had been too long, the elimination of reactionaries had not been accomplished with sufficient speed. So basically, they didn't clean up their mess fast enough. They unleash just unbelievable violence, and that creates destabilization, war, and then out of the rubble, they come in and take control, and they eliminate the forces that they basically put in place to create the revolution in the first place. We shall see more of that if you read more of their writings. The project would be backed by all the power that could be purchased with their pooled resources. This agreement reached, Meyer Rothschild unfolded his revolutionary plan. By clever manipulation of their combined wealth, it would be possible to create such adverse economic conditions that the masses would be reduced to a state bordering on starvation by unemployment. By use of cleverly conceived propaganda, it would be easy to place the blame for the adverse economic conditions on the king, his court, the nobles, the church, industrialists, and the employers of labor. Their paid propagandists would arouse feelings of hatred and revenge against the ruling classes by exposing all real and alleged cases of extravagance, licentious conduct, injustice, oppression, and persecution. They would also invent infamies to bring into disrepute others who might, if left alone, interfere with their overall plans. So you begin to see the deceptive element of this group, where they use false flags so that they can carry out their plans and then blame it on other people, and those people become the targets of reactions and violence and revolution and all that. Meanwhile, they stay in the shadows and continue to manipulate both sides. The following is what I have been assured is a condensed version of the plot by which the conspirators hope to obtain ultimate undisputed control of the wealth, natural resources, and manpower of the entire world. So again, he's writing this saying, here's what I've been told, here's what I've read, here's what I've discovered, and believe it if you want, or not. To me, I look at it and I see what's happening today and other things that I've read, like I've said, and it just makes a lot of sense. Is it true? I don't know. I'm not saying I blindly believe all this. I'm just saying, here it is. All right, so item number one, I think there's 25 points here. We'll get through them pretty quick. Item number one said the best results in governing them could be obtained by using violence and terrorism and not by academic discussions. So, it's like silent weapons for quiet wars. This is not a benevolent group of people that is going to sit down and discuss with us what their plans are to see if we agree and then go along with them. They're going to use any means necessary. Right. So item number two, political freedom is an idea and not a fact. He stated that in order to assert political power, all that was necessary was to preach liberalism so that the electorate, for the sake of an idea, would yield some of their power and prerogatives, which the plotters could then gather together into their own hands. The power of gold had usurped the power of liberal rulers. Even then, 1773, freedom had been substituted for faith. The people did not know how to use it in moderation. He argued that because of this fact, it was logical to assume that they could use the idea of freedom to bring about class wars. So this just, it's like with almost all of this, I read this stuff and it just blows me away. So they basically are preaching liberalism in order to get people to, you preach liberty, freedom, and as it goes down further, it'll become more obvious that they're appealing to the more base I don't know if even emotions is the right word, but behavior of human beings, and to get us out of more enlightened behavior, which is founded on, God, principles, integrity, Ten Commandments, all of that, basically the foundations of Western civilization. They want to appeal to emotion and right and wrong and might and violence in order to achieve their aims. And so they can use the ideas of even freedom to empower people to then take action that they manipulate and control. So it's really, there's some 3-4D stuff going on here with these guys. They're not stupid. Okay, so we're up, down to number 4. Those who wish to rule must have recourse to cunning and to make believe, because great national qualities like frankness and honesty are vices in politics. So again, you see, it's not about right and wrong, truth and justice. It's about deception, and the end justifies the means. And I mentioned this back in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars episode. They use the rule of the jungle. They don't follow any of the laws and commandments and ideals that we follow as a Christian, Western civilization, Magna Carta, constitutional society. They don't follow that. They follow might makes right, and that's how they operate. And even back then, they're alluding to it here. It's their right lies at force, and to scatter to the winds all existing forces of order and regulation, to reconstruct all existing institutions, and to become the sovereign lord of all those who left to us the rights to their powers by laying them down voluntarily in their liberalism. So they've given us this free society, they've given us all these rights and freedoms and liberties, and what have we done with it? We've created the world that we're living in today to a certain degree, as they've used that to manipulate us down a path to our own, basically, subjugation. It's really, again, it's quite diabolical. He then admonished his listeners with these words: the power of our resources must remain invisible until the very moment when it has gained such strength that no cunning or force can undermine it. All right, this one here, this one's big. This might be the most significant one, given where we are today, to really focus on. So basically, because I see the real correlation of what's happening today, and I see people that may or may not be controlled with national voices on the right, whether it's for freedom, conservatives, or just anti New World Order, the truther movement, all of that. You see a lot of people coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden to that side. They're against this impending ruling class takeover. Sorry, I seem to have some sort of bug in my throat today, so bear with me. From people like Elon Musk to who's come out recently, Russell Brand. You got Joe Rogan's been speaking out a little bit more. So you've got these big names, people that are suddenly saying what you want to hear, right? And what I've heard, you listen to, like I listen to Alex Jones a lot, and he'll say, man, people are waking up. They don't want to be a part of this new system. They see it. And they're picking a side. And that may be true. But I've been suspicious for a while. And what it looked like to me, and I'm explaining this in videos, if you watch some of my running videos from last year, 2 years ago, that they've made the calculation that they're winning. They've got enough of their systems in place. And they know that this final battle to achieve full control has to look very convincing. Like both sides are in a pitched battle, and we don't know who's going to win until the very end. Well, they already know. They've got enough in place to completely destroy humanity, and it's going to be tough getting even off the mat with what they've got lined up against us, and most people don't even realize it's there. And so I think what they're doing now, and that's what this statement says here, must remain invisible until the very moment when it's gained such strength that no cunning force can undermine it. We're in that phase. They're beginning to reveal themselves, not because everybody's waking up and deciding that they don't like it. There is some of that going on, but at the higher levels up of the controlled opposition, you're starting to see a lot more vocalization of support for what we stand for. The truther movement, liberty, all of that. Humanity. I'm on team humanity, right? And so I'm a little bit concerned that this one right here has always been part of the plan. That they operate in the shadows, they kind of nudge things along, and this battle is becoming more and more visible to everybody as it's coming out of the shadows, both sides. So not only are they becoming more obvious, they're having to bring their opposition up with them so it looks like a legitimate battle. But they believe they've already got it won, and so they're allowing it to play out. And I've referred to this as like, we're watching a football game. Citizens are the spectators in the stands. The politicians and the power brokers are the people out on the field. Team New World Order has been just running the ball up and down the field, scoring touchdowns at will. Team Humanity is just getting slaughtered. And when people start to get too restless, they may allow Team Humanity's team to kind of advance down the field, maybe get close to the end zone, get some first downs. People are in the stands saying, okay, we still got a shot. Yeah, we're down, but we still got a shot. So we stay in the stands. We're the bystanders, and we've delegated our power and authority to the people that we've elected to fight for us. And they know that. And so they've got to make it look like a real fight. And so they're going to, like I've said, we needed George Washington. We got Ronald Reagan. When you look at what Ronald Reagan did, he did some good things. We got some first downs. Did we score any touchdowns? I don't know. Could argue, both ways. But they made it look like we had some hope, and we still had some power, and we were able to execute change that was positive for Team Humanity. Well, the reality is Reagan, once he got out of office and H.W. got in and then Clinton after him, everything that was done pretty much got undone. And you really saw a similar dynamic with Trump. And that's why I said we needed George Washington. We got Ronald Reagan because Trump did some awesome things. I would vote for him again. His last vote I'll ever cast is probably in 2024 for Donald Trump. But the day he left office, most of what he did got reversed. But it gave Team Humanity some hope that we're in this fight. I'll keep fighting, as everybody should, and keep trying to elect people that we think might do some good. But with Trump, he didn't arrest anybody. He didn't dismantle any of this system. Sure, he did a lot of good going after the trafficking and all of that, the human trafficking and the child trafficking and all that, and that was awesome. Like I said, he did some good things. But the minute he left office, all has gotten reversed, right? And that's to me is a tell. That's my concern. And so like he's now saying again, elect me and we're gonna destroy the deep state. That's it. We're done. I know better now. It's like, well, sorry, but he knew better then, and he didn't do it. So is he going to do it if we get him in 2024? I'm kind of on the fence. I think we're just going to get a repeat of his first term, and then by 2028, when he's out of office, we're going to get steamrolled. So again, I'm black-pilled, so I see a lot of this is sort of controlled. I think Trump's fighting a good fight, but is he fighting a battle that can be won? I haven't seen any indication yet that that's true. I've seen a lot of, again, a lot of first downs, maybe we got a field goal, but are we tipping the field to our favor and beginning to win the battle overall? Not even close. So that's where I think this number 6 is really the significant, statement that today I see happening. Okay, they're invisible until the very moment when it's gained strength that no force can undermine it. They know they've won. Just like I've said, silent weapons for quiet wars. They know we're conquered. They've run the tests. They've made the calculations. We're rolling over to them. And that's true. Now, again, does that mean we're going to roll over to the very end and never mount any kind of at some point, this game that they're playing out on the field is going to become so obviously fixed, such an obvious charade, then that will be the moment. Everybody up in the stands, all the spectators, all of us, average Jane and John Does, right? What are we going to do? We don't know. We're not there yet, but we're approaching that point, and I don't know what that looks like. I'm just saying, I think that the statement here says a lot about where we are, and brings some legitimacy to this. That there is a plan, and that's why we're seeing things unfold the way we are. Because I think in the current plan, if they're going to stay on track with execution by 2030, we're not going to recognize the world. We're headed into war, and the outcome of that is going to be a vastly different future for humanity if we don't intervene in some way. All right, so let's get through some more of this. He next advocated the use of mob psychology to obtain control of the masses. Again, thank you. What's his name? Bernays. The propaganda is just amazing. The mind of the mob is blind, senseless, and unreasoning, and ever at the mercy of suggestion from any side. He stated only a despotic ruler can rule the mob efficiently, because without absolute despotism, there can be no existence for civilization, which was carried out not by the masses, but by their guide, whosoever that person might be. He warned, the moment the mob seizes freedom in its hands, it quickly turns to anarchy. This is interesting. They understand mob psychology, and if you study psychology at all or just human nature at all, mob rule and just mobs of people is dangerous, because there's just something kinetic that can happen within a mob of humans that can touch off and create an energy that moves in a direction that can lead to really bad things that just individual humans or a small group of people would not engage in. So they understand that, and they use that to their benefit repeatedly. And current version of something like that I think is playing out is what we saw in 2020, where they unleashed BLM and Antifa, burnt down a bunch of cities, burnt down police stations, just robbed, looted, killed. I saw tons of videos, just absolute, just it's unbelievable. And they got away with it. So, that to me was, back to silent weapons. Those riots were beta tests. That was shock testing of our system. They sent out the troops, they raised all hell, and they sat back and waited for the feedback loop, right? How does humanity respond to this? And I think they learned a lot. And what they learned is humanity doesn't respond much. We just sat back and watched it all burn. We watched people die. We watched buildings burn. We just saw the carnage, and we sat back and said, well, at least it's not my city or not my town or whatever. And so, trust me, those were beta tests. We're going to see that on a larger scale at some point, because they run the mobs. BLM isn't run by some benevolent local groups that are trying to improve the cause of the black community in inner cities in America. I mean, that's a farce. That's just such a joke. If you're buying into the cause and power of BLM, you're being suckered. Okay, at the top, it's being run by these guys, and I probably will do in the future a boil down of the Bill Ayers Manifesto from 1969. You don't need to be a weatherman to know how the wind blows or something like that. And it's extensive. I did a blog post on it about 10 years ago where they talk, just like this, but they talk about using the black community to help bring down capitalism. And in their words, the imperialists and the bourgeois and all that. And so, you're being used, you're being manipulated, and in the end, we'll get to it here, but in the end, it doesn't turn out well for those of you on that side that think you're going to really help change humanity by basically burning everything down. So mob rule, they love mob rule. That's what I get out of this one, and they use it to their benefit. All right. Number 8, he next advocated that the use of alcohol, liquor, drugs, moral corruption, and all forms of vice be used systematically by their educators to corrupt the morals of the youth of the nations. I mean, obviously that's what's happening. We must not stop at bribery, deceit, and treachery when they should serve towards the attainment of our end and justify the means. There's just people have no values, they have no soul. It's just despicable just to read through this. It's unbelievable. All right, turning to politics, he claimed they had the right to seize property by any means and without hesitation, if by doing so they secured submission and sovereignty. He pronounced, our state marching along the path of peaceful conquest has the right to replace the horrors of wars by less noticeable and more satisfactory sentences of death necessary to maintain the terror which tends to produce blind submission. I mean, this is like right out of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. All right, in ancient times, we were the first to put the words liberty, equality, and fraternity into the mouths of the masses, words repeated to this day by stupid poll parrots. So again, they're fomenting both sides because they know the power that it will eventually deliver to them through the destabilization and disruption that it's going to cause. And it's saying they have the right to seize property by any means. Again, they operate under jungle law, not constitutional law, not anything that we think is the system that we're operating under. They have the power to take it; they're going to take it. And look at and I don't know if it's which states have these laws or if they're even on the books, but I've read where, like, if you get pulled over in certain states, and let's say, for whatever reason, you get searched and let's say you have $10,000 cash on you. The cops will seize that property. They'll take you to the police station, seize the property, impound it, test it, and say, like, well, we found cocaine residue. So therefore, this money is illicit. This is drug money. So we don't know how you came upon it, but that makes you guilty, and we're going to keep this money. And money gets laundered around and around and around. Heck, I've got some cash probably, if tested, would have residue on it as well. Does that mean I'm a drug dealer? No. But these are the sort of laws that they use, that they can just take property without following our legal system. So I don't know if there's a connection to that and what they're saying here, but I see where that does happen. And it's not just money, it's cars, houses, whatever. Anything that they decide they want, they can find a way to take it from you if it serves their purpose. All right, let's keep going here. Computer's kind of buggy today. All right, he next expounded his theories regarding war. In 1773, he set down a principle which the governments of Britain and the United States publicly announced as their joint policy in 1939. He said it should be the policy of those present to foment wars, but to direct the peace conferences so that neither of the combatants obtain territorial gains. He said the war should be directed so that the nations engaged on both sides will be placed further in their debt and in the power of our agenteurs. Well, it's 1939, shortly before World War II. That's how World War II turned out. Just so happens to follow this rule right here. No, is that a coincidence? Please. Number 12, dealt with administration. He told those present that they must use their wealth to have candidates chosen for public office who would be servile and obedient to our commands, so they may readily be used as pawns in our game by the learned and ingenious men we will appoint to operate behind the scenes of government as official advisors. He added, the men we appoint as advisors will have been bred, reared, and trained from childhood in accordance with our ideas to rule the affairs of the whole world. Now again, is it coincidence? I mean, that's our system. That's how we've got these idiots, the Bidens, the Pelosi's, the drooling idiots in Congress that they trot out in front of us as the power structure, and then they pit them against each other, and we focus on them. And they're the geniuses above it all that run it, both sides of it. Have no illusions. They're running both sides of this. A lot of people that you believe in and listen to and read about and are inspired by every day, there's a good chance they're part of this system. I mean, I hate to admit it. I love to watch Alex Jones. Watched him for years. I've learned a lot. It's led me down a lot of great rabbit holes that I've learned a lot from, and I think he's fighting hard for Team Humanity, but is he controlled? I don't know. And neither do you. I listen to other pundits, and are they controlled? I don't know. I don't know who is and isn't controlled. You tell me who's not controlled, then you tell me why you believe that. And if it's because, well, listen to what they say, it's just obvious. It's so evident that they couldn't possibly. Well, they could be lying. They could be convincing actors, or they could believe it, but also know that this is the realm that they're allowed to discuss. Just like whether it was Reagan, who was shot, they attempted to suicide him or to to take him out, a couple weeks into his first term. And after that, I mean, did that do it? Was that enough for him to say, okay, I'm not going to do what I had originally thought I was going to do, so now I'm just going to go along? But he still did a lot of good things for this country. And so it's like, it's not a black and white. There are people out there doing good things for this country, but there are limits. And like I've said in other episodes, when that person is told when to stand down or when to stand up for this or that agenda item, they're going to. And they're going to betray you and I, and that's just it. And we're going to sit around scratching our heads like, why did they do that? Again, I use the Marjorie Taylor Greene example of supporting McCarthy as Speaker. That didn't at all go with any of her rhetoric, right? But she did it because the power structure wanted him in. So when they gave the call to her and told her, you're going to support him because of the people that she influences, that's how they do it. That's how they do it. Whether it's politicians like her or people in Hollywood like Taylor Swift and what's the dude that she's with? Oh my God, the football player, Kelsey. I mean, those people control millions of just mostly clueless Americans who they're clapping seal idiots that if Taylor Swift says go get a tattoo of a giant squid on your forehead, they probably would because that's the next thing, right? And that's how manipulable people are. And these people know that. They know that if they put their pawns out there, that's who they are, they're pawns in the game, that they sort of help direct and move the masses in their directions. And at the end of it all, it always works out to their benefit. All of these campaigns, employees, and tactics and whatnot. So I think that's a pretty significant, tell right there. And the people behind them, they're genius. They're genius. And I've said this before on other episodes. If you have a 180 IQ in high school, you're probably going to get a visit from somebody. And they're going to sell it to you really nice and neat, like you're going to help save America and the world. And you're going to become one of these people if you go along as they nudge you down a path and slowly reveal, who you really are, who they really are. And again, back to the Q thing, these people are idiots. No, they're not. That's a tell. Anybody that's smart, that studies this stuff, knows that they're not idiots. The pawns are the idiots. And so that right there with the Q stuff, it's like, now get out of here with that, okay? Because I know these people aren't stupid. But that's appealing to the ego of the people that follow all that. Oh, yeah, that's right, because we're the smart ones. We got it. We're just right. We just can't reveal it yet. So meanwhile, the whole world's on fire. Nothing but carnage going on. But, it had to be this way. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think you're being conned. All right. Let's see. Thanks to the press, we have got gold in our hands, notwithstanding the fact that we had to gather it out of the oceans of blood and tears, but it's paid us even though we have sacrificed many of our own people. All right. Good for you. Whatever. All right. Explain the necessity of having their agenteur always come out into the open and appear on the scene when conditions had reached their lowest ebb and the masses had been subjugated by means of want and terror. He pointed out that when it was time to restore order, they should do it in such a way that the victims would believe they had been the prey of criminals and irresponsibles. By executing the criminals and lunatics after they have carried out our preconceived reign of terror, we can make ourselves appear as the saviors of the oppressed and the champions of the workers. Okay, so BLM, Antifa, are you listening? They're using you to foment terror and violence and rage and death. And when it's all said and done, by executing the criminals and lunatics after they have carried out the preconceived reign of terror, you're always the first ones to go. The provocateurs are always the first ones to go after their reign of terror. And they've done this over and over in history. It's French Revolution, they've done this. And so it's like, come on, people, don't fall for these cons, because this is a well thought out plan that they just execute flawlessly over and over. And humanity keeps falling for it because they're not awake. They're not awake. And so they're easy to manipulate. So I thought this is a pretty significant one, how they just come right out with that. And anybody that's in one of these sort of radicalized groups, and I say even on not just Antifa and BLM, but, be careful, MAGA. I count myself as sort of a mega person. I mean, yeah, I want to make America great. Yeah, I've supported Trump. But I'm not going to let them provoke me to violence. And you look at, God, I just saw a video on it, a little blurb, that ridiculous organization, Patriot Front. I mean, it's just asinine. They're just getting started with that stuff. And obviously they've tried to provoke violence. Look at January 6th, all the FBI informants in there that helped try to provoke that. The fake kidnapping of the governor of Michigan, what's his name, Whitmer. It was all FBI orchestrated. So be careful of their provocateurs on every side of this. They're always in the crowd somewhere. And as soon as you see somebody rising up like a Ray Epps, we need to storm the Capitol. Right there, man. Call them out. Call them out, because the MAGA movement is not about violence. It's about everything that America was supposed to stand for that's been hijacked. So it's something to really be mindful of, that they control both sides to some degree. All right, explained how industrial depressions and financial panics could be brought about and used to serve their purpose, saying enforced unemployment and hunger imposed on the masses because of the power we have to create shortages of food will create the right of capital to rule more surely than it was given to the real aristocracy and by the legal authority of kings, claimed by having their agenter control the mob, and the mob could then be used to wipe out all who dared to stand in their way. So yeah, they have considerable resources, and this boom and bust that they say is just natural capitalism. It's funny that they say that like diehard capitalists, that's just the nature of it. And to a certain degree, creative destruction. To a certain degree, I agree with that. But if you look at the last, especially 25 years since the .com, every boom and bust cycle, the middle class, I haven't looked at the statistics, but I would bet if you look at those statistics, the middle class is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The wealthier getting wealthier and wealthier, the poor are getting poorer, at least the numbers of poor, however you define that here in America, is getting larger, the middle class is getting smaller. And that, coincidentally, works in their favor. All right. The infiltration into continental Freemasonry was next discussed extensively. The speaker stated that their purpose would be to take advantage of the facilities and secrecy Freemason had to offer. I've done a little bit of research on this, and it looks pretty convincing that the Freemason group is at some level involved in all this, the 33rd degree and above and all that. And if you look at how pervasive Freemasonry is in America, all across this country, there are lodges, even in the smallest of towns. And so, to me, it lends a strong argument to how do they exert such control over such a wide space and a large population. Well, if you've got, literally thousands of lodges spread across the country, and you've got elements of control at the higher levels of those groups, that makes a lot of sense to me. Show me another group that has that kind of reach in American culture. It makes sense. All right. So next expounded the value of systematic deceptions, pointing out that their agenteurs should be trained in the use of high-sounding phrases and the use of popular slogans. They should make the masses the most lavish of promises. He observed the opposite of what has been promised can always be done afterwards. Reason that by using such words as freedom and liberty, I'll get to that in a minute here, could be stirred up to such a pitch of patriotic fervor that they could be made to fight even against the laws of God and nature. And for this reason, after we obtain control, the very name of God will be erased from the lexicon of life. So again, they're using our freedom and liberty. Watch for that. I got to dig into this more, because I tend to focus a lot on the left and all of their obvious just ridiculousness and everything that they're trying to do to undermine America, because freedom and liberty and the right that tends to be associated with pro-America and supporting the Constitution and all that. But there's something going on here to this, and January 6th was a part of that. So it's just something to be mindful of. And then this here, I don't get into that. I don't get into, well, and there's a lot of that is coming out now with, I don't even want to say the word. I mean, I don't want to touch it, because if once you go there, then you're part of that label and you're anti this or anti that. It's like, no, this isn't about any race or religion or class or whatever. This power structure is about people that have consolidated their wealth and power to control humanity. You want to nitpick about any of their religious or nationality, ethnicities, go ahead, nitpick all you want. I don't care. I don't care, because what they're doing is the issue here, not what group they belong to. So then if you start to stand up and take a stance against that group, well, that's, it's like some of the stuff, I've posted stuff about this whole divide and conquer thing that's going on between boomers and millennials and Gen Z. You can't put people in a group like that. And so they take these caricatures of a large swath of population and then assign certain attributes to it, and then everybody gets attributed to that, and then we all go after each other and fight each other while they sit on top and laugh at us. I'm not going there with this, okay? I don't know if there's some conspiracy. And you can look at numbers and say, yeah, there's a lot there, and they're fine, whatever. I don't care. What are they doing with their power? This person. Black, white, red, green, blue, Christian, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, it doesn't matter. Now, if they're doing those things in the name of that, okay, fine, then that's how they identify in their tribalistic sense. I don't care about that either. I care about the power structure and what they're doing to us. I'm not falling into this trap. Okay, so this book mentions that it's coming from that sort of J perspective, right? And there may be, I've read Bolsheviks. There's a lot to that where there was a certain concentration. But again, that's not the point. And so if you start pointing that out, then that becomes the conversation. You get undermined, and there's nothing. It's over. The conversation is over. This is about power and people, nothing more. All right. All right. So let's see. He then detailed the plans for Revolutionary War, the art of street fighting, and outlined the pattern for the reign of terror, which he insisted must accompany every revolutionary effort because it is the most economical way to bring the population to speedy subjugation. So, like I said, 2020 was a beta test. Further in this book, he also mentions how the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia was a beta test to see how their communist system would hold up on a large population. And he makes comment like they knew better than to try to roll that out across the whole world, or I forget exactly how he said it, but it's like that was a beta test, and it lasted for 70, 80 years, 60, 70, 80 years. And, their brainiacs were taking notes and studying and feeding it back into the system to figure out how to make it better. But that's how they do this. They do a lot of, like 2020, it was just a lot of beta tests, burning down the cities. Let's see. And then next time they roll it out, that will have also built into it whatever fine tuning needed to make it even more effective. And that's, the end goal is to bring the population to speedy subjugation. So just like silent weapons for quiet wars. I mean, it's all the same. They're just sitting around trying to figure out how to bring us down. All right. So people better start fighting back. That's all I can say. All right. Number 19. We're almost there. In order that our agentur, masquerading as political, financial, and economic advisors, can carry out our mandates without fear of exposing who are the secret power behind national and international affairs. All right. So after all wars, secret diplomacy must be insisted upon in order that they can masquerade. Okay, got it. Ultimate world government, the goal. To reach this goal, it will be necessary to establish huge monopolies, reservoirs of such colossal riches that even the largest fortunes of them will depend on us to such an extent. It's just people. That's us. Whatever label they want to put on me, I don't care. It's the power they're trying to inflict on humanity, all of us, whoever they are, And we know who a lot of them are, and it doesn't matter about what I said earlier, right? As far as what their nationalities and races and all that, doesn't matter. All right, so they will go to the bottom together with the credit of their governments on the day after the great political smash. And this one here talks about, the monopolies. I'm old enough to remember when we used to break up monopolies in America. Back, Ma Bell is what they called it back in the early 70s, late 70s, when they broke up, I think it was AT&T at the time. And that was a thing because we understood when we were following the principles that this nation was founded on, we understood that centralized power of any kind can be used to disadvantage the people. And so they would break up companies if they became monopolies. And I think the last even attempt at something like that was, the 90s with Microsoft. And even that, I think, was just, for show. They didn't lose a lot of power. But you look at even back, I've done some reading on Standard Oil with Rockefeller. He became a monopoly. They broke it up. It really was just a shell game. It was all still Standard Oil. And what you've seen over the last 20 years is a great consolidation of power in corporate monopolies. And how many of those memes have you seen where 5 media companies control all media? 5 or 6 companies control all the food supply. That's not an accident. And again, here are these moves that always move toward the benefit of this ruling class. And most people just see it as kind of the day-to-day workings of what's happening in society. It's like, no, there's a hidden hand here, folks. They're dragging us down a path, and it leads to a really, really bad end. And I've been complaining about that for years. It's like, when are we going to stop allowing these consolidations? And the fake news on CNBC and Fox Business, they'll sit up there with their little talking heads and tell you how good it's going to be for the people that these 12 companies merge down into 3 companies, and they'll be able to bring greater price controls and economies of scale, and it's good for everybody. Well, no, it's not. But people watch and believe that they're listening to people that they can trust and that are telling the truth. And you can't, and they're not. They're lying. The monopolies are not good. Okay? And I won't even go into examples of that. But it leads to, and now what you're seeing more talk of this, our public-private partnerships. Now that they've got power so consolidated, the government can now basically control, it's like silent weapons for quiet wars. They control all the inputs, right? So you see this saying, with our public-private partnerships, we can do good for humanity. And it's like public-private partnerships is fascism, right? And it only does good for humanity to the extent it allows them a cover to do what the real purpose is of that partnership. And it usually is not good for humanity. So here we go. We're being steamrolled, folks. And here's 250 years ago, supposedly, discussing the plan. All right, just a few more. Economic war, plans to rob the of their landed properties and industries, rob the people, were then discussed. A combination of high taxes and unfair competition was advocated to bring about the economic ruin of mankind as far as their national financial interests and investments were concerned. And again, you see this playing out. It's right in front of you, folks. Point after point after point. This plan mirrors reality. So, which came first? And is it just a whole bunch of coincidences? If you can believe that, more power to you. All right, so this could be achieved by the careful control of raw materials, organized agitation amongst the workers for shorter hours and higher pay, and by subsidizing competitors. The speaker warned his co-conspirators that they must arrange matters and control conditions so that the increased wages obtained by the workers will not benefit them in any way. Man, inflation, and the devaluation of the dollar since the establishment of the Federal Reserve and the income tax. We're being just robbed blind. All right, 22, armaments, building up of armaments for the purpose of making humanity destroy each other should be launched on such a colossal scale that in the final analysis there will only be the masses of the proletariat left in the world, with a few millionaires devoted to our cause, and police and soldiers sufficient to protect our interests. So I think this one here, we're seeing the buildup to a pretty significant global conflict with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and the talk of Taiwan and China, and then what happened back in Israel, Iran. I mean, there's just the geopolitical tension is at an all-time high. Let's just put it that way. And this group has been creating geopolitical tension for a long time by putting their puppet governments and puppet political leaders in place. Look at the Korean War. We could have steamrolled through North Korea and united all the Korean Peninsula, and it would be a pro-democracy, sort of pro-capitalist. It'd be South Korea. It would be the whole country. Who do you think stopped that? Who was it? General? Was it MacArthur? Man, I read that a long time ago, but I think so. I think it was MacArthur, and basically was just all for, let's just wrap this up. We got them on the run. We can do this even after, China sent in 500,000 troops and pushed us all the way back, almost to the shore of South Korea. And we finally fought it all back and, took Seoul back, and we're marching north, could have marched all the way to the river. We scared them all back, and we could have united that country. We didn't as a strategic geopolitical decision was made to help create the strategic tension. And so many of their decisions lead to, even China. We were backing Chiang Kai-shek in China at first. And then the CIA gets involved. Next thing you know, Mao's rising to power, and Chiang Kai-shek was winning. And then they did some sabotage stuff going on there to weaken Chiang Kai-shek and backed Mao, who was educated here in America. Was it Harvard? No, Yale. Yale? One of the I think Yale. And so they did that on purpose. The CIA and this shadow ruling class, whatever you want to call it, they helped Mao come to power and create this giant communist behemoth that we're now having to deal with today. And that was always the plan. And that's why they shifted all the resources and the funding and built it up to what it is today. China would still be wallowing around in the ditches if it wasn't for this power structure backing them and creating the political environment that allowed them to rise to power. It's just, there's so many, that's the plan. Geopolitical tension reaches, a crescendo, and it's all going to come crashing down, and it just seems like we're moving towards that. Now, I don't know if this next war that they're arranging is going to be the war of all wars that's going to help the depopulation and create, the you will eat bugs, great reset agenda, or if there's one more after that. But it sure seems like we're pretty close to that. All right, number 23, so we got three more. The new order. The members of the one world government would be appointed by the dictator. He would pick men from amongst the scientists, the economists, the financiers, the industrialists, and from the millionaires, because in substance, everything will be settled by the question of figures. So you will not have a say. What was it, Klaus Schwab a couple weeks ago, I saw the video recently. I don't know when he said it, that in the future, there will be no elections. They already know what the people want. And so, the arrogance of these guys. But that's they're putting it out there. They're telling you where we're going. This is your future if you don't fight back. Rule of the jungle. Either we stop them or we've given them the right to steamroll us. So people better get involved. Better get vocal. All right, 24, importance of youth. The importance of capturing the interests of youth was emphasized with the admonition that our agenteurs should infiltrate into all classes and all levels of society and government for the purpose of fooling, bemusing, and corrupting the younger members of society by teaching them theories and principles we know to be false. Well, again, just look around. And with the education system, what they were able to do with that, and you look at the populace, the average person just fits right into this. We're dodo birds, man. And we're that close. We're that close to having it all taken away from us if we don't wake up and recognize that this power structure is what's doing all this. All right. And the last one, national and international laws should not be changed, but should be used as they are to destroy the civilization of humanity. Just keep putting that out there. Merely by twisting them into a contradiction of the interpretation which first masks the law and afterwards hides it altogether. Our ultimate aim is to substitute arbitration for law. And you're seeing that. We have a two-tier justice system. It is out there. It is out there. It is in full force and effect. And it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, I forget when it first came out, where George Soros started funding all the DAs. And they've taken over the legal system in most of the big cities and even smaller municipalities, but certainly the big cities. And the rule of law is gone. It's all about arbitration. And which side of the equation are you on? Are you with them or against them? And if you're with them, bloody murder. Go right ahead. No problem. If you're against them, oh, you jaywalked. You're going to prison. And it's total arbitration of law. We're there. If you get caught in their crosshairs, that's what you have in store for you. All right, so 25 points, lays out the whole plan, a meeting that was supposedly had by Meyer Rothschild back in 1773. And, take it for what it's worth. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? I mean, this book is a good read for historical context. It gets into the weeds of the power struggles back and forth through whether it's the French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, all of that, all through it. And there's some really compelling reading in there. I haven't finished it, but it says here 203 pages. It's worth it. It's a good read. And again, is it true? I don't know. I'm not just going to discount it and throw it out and say, I don't know. I don't have 47 experts that have verified that it's true, so I'm not going to believe any of it. No, there's plausible. Look at it all. It all just matches everything we're going through right now. So whether it's true or not, it should at least be a wake-up like, wow, there's something going on here. I need to investigate. So let me see what we've got here, these last couple sentences or paragraphs. Should wrap it up. Use of the word West has great significance. It makes it plain that Rothschild was addressing men who had joined the world revolutionary movement, which was started in the Pale of Settlement in the East. Must be remembered that before Amschel, Moses Bauer, that's the original guy who changed his name to Rothschild. Amschel, it's a weird name, probably I don't remember it. Settled down in Frankfurt, Germany, of course, Frankfurt. He had followed his trade as a gold and silversmith, traveling extensively in the east of Europe, where he had undoubtedly met the men his son Amschel Meyer addressed after he developed from a moneylender into a banker and established the House of Rothschild in the Jundenstrasse, where the above meeting is said to have taken place in 1773. I'm satisfied that the documents which fell into the hands of Professor S. Nihilus in 1901, and which he published under the title of the J. Peril in 1905 in Russia, were an enlargement of the original plot. There appears to be no change in the first section, but various additions disclose how the conspirators had used Darwinism, Marxism, and even Nietzscheism. More important still, the documents discovered in 1901 disclosed how Z was to be used. It must be remembered that Z was only organized in 1897. And this comment, the J. Peril, it's there's a book that I've just recently, I've heard of it, but I just recently downloaded it. I haven't read it. And it's called The Protocols of the Learned Elders. You can read it right there. And the system that we live in today tells you this is total fabrication. It's a lie. None of it's true. All right? So believe what you want. And if we go over to, I got this over here, Wikipedia. Yeah, so purporting to detail a plot for global domination, largely plagiarized from several earlier sources, first publicized in Imperial Russia, 1903, translated, disseminated internationally. It played a key part in popularizing belief in international J conspiracy. So it's basically saying it's a fabricated text, right? Black propaganda. I don't know. And that's why I'm never going to sit up here and say, look, this is what I believe and this is exactly how it is. If I do, I don't know, maybe there's an exception to that. Most of the time, I'm going to be framing it the way I've been framing all of my episodes, that here's some information that I have found to be interesting and possibly relevant. It may be true, and so it should be considered that we may be living under this system. I believe that, and to me it's fairly obvious. There is some grand system that's controlling a lot of humanity, and with the increase in technology, it's just made their control even more obvious, but also more significant. So take with that what you will. All right, so that's it for this episode. Really appreciate y'all for hanging in there. For those of you that watch the whole thing, that's awesome. I'm not going to give you 10-second sound bites like you've got the attention span of a goldfish. No, I'm going to put down good information that I hope is compelling, and you've got to hold attention to get through the whole thing. And if you do, hopefully you'll get something good out of it. All right. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. All right. Later.